Hi there, this is Dr. Embody, and we're going to take a look at Project 7. And this project actually came out of a discussion with our sys administrator. As with any system, we are under constant attack. My area of research is security, hackers, how hackers get into things, and how do we keep them out. And so he started keeping track of the IP addresses of where the attacks on the department were coming from. And so one of the questions that comes out of that is, all right, so we have these things called IP addresses. What countries are these coming from? And that's what we're going to do in this project, is we're going to take some real data. These are the daily attacks on the department. Look at the IP addresses and then figure out the countries that they come from, and then make a little bar chart of the top 10. So to start with, let's take a look at what an IP address is. And if you look at these, so here's one page. Actually, there's a whole bunch of days, and you can just grab any particular day. And these are the IP addresses. Now, what is an IP address? Well, IP stands for Internet Protocol, and every computer connected to the internet has an IP address, and it's a set of 4 numbers, each one being 3 digits. So 3 digits, a dot, 3 digits, a dot, and so on. And if the number is actually less than 3 digits, then they only show the first couple. So for example, on the MSU campus, 35.9 is one of the common prefixes for the computers on the internet at MSU. And then there'll be 2 other values, like 10 and 102, something like that. So there are 4 components to an IP address. And what we do for this is we only have captured the first 3, and that's what is known as the Class C addresses, because those will identify broad groupings. The last one might identify a particular machine, which might be associated to a person. So that's personal information, and we don't want to display that. And it's not important to our problem here, because in general these 3 are enough to identify the country. So here on this particular day, October 4th, we were attacked from a bunch of countries. There's a big file there. These are all the attacks that came in, and the question is, which countries? And while we're at it, let's find out who the top 10 are. Okay, so that's what our job is. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these, and we're going to have 3 files. This is one file. That's I'll call it file 1. And then we have another file which has IP addresses. It'll have a start and an IP end and a country code. And so what we do is we take a look at an IP address and we find out which pair it's between. Excuse me. And then that gives us code. Like, for example, for United States, that'll give us US, right? And maybe and then there are 2-letter codes for other countries. But many of these codes you don't recognize. So the other thing that we do is, so that was my second file. We're going to have a third file which has the code and the full name. So it'd be like US is the United States. So that's our task. We have this file of IP addresses. We have to now find out for each one of those what country code is associated with it and find out the full name of that country code because we don't recognize all of those. So we have 3 files. And from those 3 files, so we have 3 files. And from that, we're going to make 3 lists of all that information. And then we're going to go through those lists to find out the country for each one of these. I want to find out the country. And then after I've done that, I want to find out the top 10. And then after that, we will send it to a plot. And we'll actually plot it out. One thing we're going to do different this time is that we have a hidden test. And what that means is that we're going to give you 1 day for you to work on and to run tests on. And then I'm picking some other random day and you're going to be tested to make sure your program works on that. So that'll be a way of making sure that you've adhered to all the specifications, and this will be either correct or not. That's the only, you won't get any other feedback on that. You either did it right or not, and there won't be any other information on that. So when we have these 3 lists, we're then going to have functions that will do something like the process right here. I have an IP address, what code is it? That'll be a function. Another one will be, oh, I've got a code, what country is that? Oh, there's another function. And I encourage you to do other functions, like we show in the description where we're going to take an IP address and make it into an int. You do that multiple times. I made a function out of that. You can do that or not. Another thing is that we needed to sometimes take the IP address 273416 and add zeros onto it in some cases to make get that last set of digits in there. And we also had to convert this to an integer like I described there. So we make that 027, 034, 016, dot, 000. We make that into an int, which of course we lose that guy. Now I have an int, and then that's useful for some of the operations that we do. The other thing is that sometimes when we print things out, we actually print this number with 3 x's. I wrote a little function that figured out how to do that. Simple little things, but the important thing is that you have some required functions. Read the file, read the file, read the file, do this operation, do that operation. There's 5 functions there, and you probably want to add some of your own. All right, let me show you a couple of things. Here is what the file, here are the 3 files. We have the file of the attacks, right? And these are class C. There's only 3 numbers in there. And then we have this file that has a start IP address, an end IP address, and a country code. And then we have the third one, which has a country name and the code in it. In this case, separated by semicolons. This one is separated by commas. Right? And this one has 1 to a line. So you've got 3 different kinds of files. Each one gets read into we read all the attacks into a list. We read all of this into a list. We read all of this into a list. And then we do our processing. So files are read once. One of the reasons we do that is that it takes a lot less time to do it this way, as opposed to keep opening and reading the file multiple times. We open the file and then we create 3 lists. Then we're going to work on those 3 lists. That's the basic idea of this project. If we take a look at the code itself, you will see some familiar things in there. Open a file, you've already got that kind of code. Then we read the IP locations, the IP attacks. Those are my 3 files. And they result in 3 lists. And then we have a function. Here we want to find the code of a country. And here we want to get the name for that. We give you a bar plot. So once you have determined the top 10, okay, the list of the counts and the countries involved, this will plot it for you. And then there's a main. What do we have in that main? Well, we have open a file, return it in a list, read it and return it as. Open a file, read it, return it. There's another list. Open a file, read it, and there's another list. So there's my 3 lists. And then it's based on that we actually do our calculations, calling the functions. Notice, for example, that this one takes a list of IPs and the IP of one attack, and it will give us the country code involved. Similarly here, there's a list of the countries. We give it a code, and it gives us a name in return. And there's the basic outline of the code involved. Here we have a link. There's where all the attacks are listed. If you're curious, we give you a file, and then we'll pick another one for the hidden. And then we specify each of the functions and what each one does and what the main does. And then again, we have, as we've done before, we have some tests of each of the functions, and some of these get kind of long. In fact, here, when we want to display all the data, there's really just this ran for pages, and so. But when you look at Mirror, you'll get feedback on that. Then there is a blind test. Okay, that's just the different days of data. And then finally, we ask you to do a plot showing the top 10 countries. This data here is what's plotted. So you have to print that out every time. So you can actually effectively, Mirror checks that this data is correct. And then your task is simply to figure out how to pass it to the plotting routine. Notice that we go for the top 10, largest to smallest, and you're sorting. That's reverse equals true. And because of that, it doesn't show on this one. Let me back up to a different one. Here we go. That when, what do you do in terms of ordering? These all have the same value of 2. So we list the countries reverse alphabetical order. Okay? And it's pretty arbitrary whether we do it in alphabetical order or reverse. We do it in reverse alphabetical order because you're doing the count in reverse order. It just turns out it's easier to do this. And this gives us a canonical way to do that. For example, there's a whole bunch of countries who had a single attack, and which one, we're only showing 2 here because we're doing the top 10. Which ones do you show reverse alphabetical order? Why do we look up the country names? Well, I don't know. Do you know what ZA stands for? Do you know what DZ is? And so on in terms of countries. That's why we go and look up the country, because there are many codes there that we don't know. So hopefully that gives you a good start on this. Good luck.